All right, Olympic episode rolling on here on the podcast. We are getting ready to talk some Olympic golf here as we head to Paris at like Golf National. Here, as you can see behind me on the Zoom page. Back with me a week after we talk preview the Open Championship. Dan DeMartini, the PGA Tour is here. Dan, how are you?
I'm doing great. Happy to be back.
Be back here and Olympic golf's definitely a relatively recent phenomenon for the modern world. I mean, it was basically non-existent from I think until 2016. They brought it back in Rio. They played in Tokyo. And now we're back in Paris. So obviously a lot of fun talking Olympic golf because it's not the usual sort of formula here for how you get into this tournament.
No, there's a lot of qualifications that go into it. A lot of it is directly correlated to the world golf rankings, which is a completely different system than the FedEx Cup. It's there's ties to all of it, but the International Golf Federation, the IGF, they've got this is basically their pride and joy here, and one of their biggest assets in the game of golf here too. So it's a very unique competition. 72 holes, no cut. It's a big challenge for these guys. They're playing at a golf course that probably just isn't in the rotation as much. This is a rare situation that a few of the guys might have been there. Obviously, the Ryder Cup was played there in 2018. So if you guys might be more familiar with this one, but the teams from back then are drastically different than who's going to be representing now. So it should be a really true test. It's going to be a great week, and I can just tell you from kind of being a little bit more behind the scenes on some things. I think the top players in the world, you know, think of a guy like Scotty Scheffler, right? He's won basically everything that you can imagine. What's the one thing that we still haven't seen yet? A gold medal.
Yeah.
And so you're going to get, a renewed sense of hunger and passion out there. And you're not, and I will tell you this, Scotty doesn't have it easy. The field is definitely tough.
It's definitely tough here. And obviously talk about this course here, like Golf National. Obviously, you mentioned we were here 2018 for the Ryder Cup. We have not really been back with most of the pros since then. What do we know about this course?
Yeah. I mean, this golf course is definitely going to be a test from an accuracy standpoint. As you can even see from behind you, there's trouble. There's a lot of trouble. These are um, holes that are going to create some really unique sight lines. There's water. There's obviously going to be bunkers that are going to protect a ton of the greens. I think the greens themselves, the defense is more so off the tee than the greens themselves. I think if the guys put themselves in a good spot, I think there's a chance to make some birdies. I think it favors the Europeans, though. I really do. I think it favors players that are used to that kind of play. And we've recently we're talking about the Open Championship and the Genesis Scottish Open that was just played. So, I think that players have been, from what I understand, players have been going and been overseas practicing on these types of courses now for quite some time. They've spent almost the past month just getting themselves prepared. So I think that you're going to really have to think about, where do you want to put the ball off the tee? You can't make mistakes. You've got to get birdies. So how do you take chances but not make mistakes? This is where that, risk reward comes in. And I definitely think this will be a test, but I expect the numbers to be pretty strong and pretty low. I don't expect these guys to be, one or two over. I'm thinking that this is going to be a battle to get out to a lead and then hold on.
Yeah, for sure. It's really interesting to discuss the qualification process for this tournament because unlike all the PGA events, this is limited to 60 golfers for men, 60 women. And I believe the rules are like they go off the world golf rankings. You can only have four in one federation here. So, for example, US men only get four golfers in the whole tournament, though a lot more of them are in the top 50, 60 of the rankings here. And you have to make sure there's delegates from like golfers from like different confederations around the world, continental regions here. So, qualification for
Yeah,
the much harder than you would think.
yeah, and once again, I mean, you're going to see a ton of names that you recognize. You might see a few names that you don't, and I think that's intentional. I think that the criteria is really to ensure that all nations are represented. Um, kind of on as fair a basis as possible. The official world golf rankings are a system that is meant to showcase the best player in the world, and that is something that is taken very seriously. There's a lot of really smart people behind the scenes looking into the statistics behind it, and this is the test that they're trying to put out there. And so currently there are quite a few, US and American representing players that are going to be in the field, but there's quite a few others as well. I mean, think about what they've got to go up against here. I was just looking at it as well. I mean, they're, Rory McIlroy and Shane Lowry right there representing Ireland. Then you got from Sweden, you've got Ludwig Aubert, my one of my favorite players, and Alex Noren, a very tough guy to try to beat. Victor Hovland is going to represent Norway. You've got John Rahm coming out of Spain. And then Hideki out of Japan. So it's not like this is a cakewalk. It's not like that. The U.S. These top four players representing the U.S. are going to just go over there and play against a bunch of guys you don't know. I mean, even Australia. I mean, you've got you know, top players, Jason Day and Minwoo Lee, two fan favorites and players that have been there and done that, whether it's on the DP World Tour or playing in the US for years and have won majors. And, it does not get easy. And then you've got one of my absolute favorites who I've picked on our podcast a few times, Mathieu Pavon, representing France, and this is a home field advantage for Mathieu, and he's having the best year of his career. So it would be really hard to pick against him as well. So, the USA team, while this is going to be, they're going to be hungry to win it because a lot of them, Xander obviously has won in the past, but I think Scotty's going to want to have a really good showing, and I know his family and friends that are going are going to be really excited to cheer him on.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously the limiting factor with this tournament being the way it is in terms of like obviously you're gonna just the fact the confederations the way all the way they are, you're missing like a lot of big names in terms of in the US side, for example, like Bryson DeChambeau does not qualify for this thing, despite right now being in like the top 10 of the current rankings here. Like I think Tommy Fleetwood didn't make it from I know he's there, but like there's a lot of guys like and I had two of the top 10 golfers in the world, three that like and four of the top 15 did not make it, which is tells you how hard it is to get into this tournament.
Yeah, I mean, once again, they try to get a true representation of, competitive golf, right? And, Bryson and a few of the other players that probably didn't make it into the mix, right now, there's obviously it's no surprise given the state of professional golf between the PGA Tour and, these other tours that are out there that, they don't earn as much world golf rankings points as the PGA Tour does. So, and the DP World Tour. So it definitely is a different field than what most people would think from the Olympic standpoint. But the four guys that are representing the United States, nothing against the other guys, but these four have had an incredible year of golf, a year plus of golf. They're all winning major tournaments and winning consistently. And I think any one of the four of them has a chance to win. So nothing against the other guys. I think it's a really cool group. I think the four guys that are going are all players that us as Americans we can really root and get behind because they're all really good guys and they all want to represent the United States and make us proud.
Yep, here and one of those guys is the reigning gold medal winner. Xander Schauffele won the gold over in Tokyo a couple of years ago here, and obviously he's had a good year. He won the PGA Championship back in May. So, like, what do you think Xander's chances are to win to add another gold to his collection?
Would we? It'd be so strange to sit here and say that we think that Xander would have that edge over Scotty, when Scotty is literally just having one of the best years in professional golf, if not could be. If he wins the FedEx Cup or wins another major or wins another few tournaments, arguably the best year in professional golf history. So. But it does feel like Xander maybe has because he's got a little bit more of the experience and had that success a few years back. Maybe he has a little bit of an edge in terms of the comfortability of understanding what the week is like. People that I work with on my team are involved in supporting Team USA and supporting you know, the Olympics and qualifications for golf and at large. And I can just tell you from what's going on a little bit behind the scenes, it is a very, very involved, as you would imagine. There's a lot of people in that want to go to the Olympics, that want to be there. There's a lot of security, there's a lot of protocols, there's a lot of um, layers to this to get over there. So it's quite an operation. It feels like the Super Bowl, but for the rest of the world. Um, so golf is just, you know, one piece of this pie. But you know, it's going to be quite the grueling experience. And I feel like if you haven't done it before, it can be a lot. So knowing that the logistics behind it can be, you know, if you've never done it, can be a little challenging. I think that maybe Xander has a slight edge on the other guys.
Yeah, that's for sure here. And let's talk about some of these top contenders here. Obviously, a lot of big names. Talk about Scotty, Xander Schauffele, Rory McIlroy, Hovland, Rahm. There are a lot of heavy hitters here. You mentioned like Matthew Pavon was probably got the home course advantage, having probably played this growing up. So, who are some guys you're watching in this deal as top contenders?
Yeah, you know what? As somebody who I think, you know, obviously, you know, McElroy and Matt Fitzpatrick and you know these guys that are playing at the very top of their game right now. Those are the easy ones. I kind of like looking a little bit deeper down the list a little bit to find some interesting challengers. I think somebody that could be really interesting this year, just knowing the kind of resurgence his career's had, and he hasn't necessarily had the most, but you know, Camila Villegas is just such uh, a a good story, a good person, somebody who I've enjoyed watching the entire career. So I think the fact that he's getting to represent Colombia is really cool. I hope he comes out and has a few good rounds to start. You know, I happened to be on site when he won in Bermuda this past fall, and really changed his career path again. And it was a really cool scene there. And so I really think that at this point of his career, it'd be very, very special for him. Um, some of the other guys that I think are interesting. So this Ryan Fox, okay, so Ryan Fox is from New Zealand, and I'm sure a lot of people have seen Fox, just like the name on the leaderboard during majors, during tournaments. He plays basically all over the world, but you know he's been playing a lot of PGA Tour events lately, and man, he just is constantly in the mix. He's somebody who I fully expect to see Ryan Fox's name up there, pushing the Americans and pushing McIlroy and Lowry and all those guys as well, because he's just always there. You know, whenever you flip on the golf, it's like, man, what? Ryan Fox, he's just always there. So keep an eye on that one. Um, you know, and then somebody who I've talked about recently too that I think would be really interesting is Thomas Dietrich. He's from Belgium. He's a player who, when the stage is biggest, I think he really shows up. I think he truly cares about it. And I think that he's going to continue to try to make a name for himself. So let's just say that every single, and even to go off of that too, another fantastic player representing Denmark, Nikolai Hogard. Here's a guy who, you know, last year on the DP World Tour just crushed it, and he's been out on the PGA Tour and he's had some success, and his name is constantly on the leaderboard as well. So the Americans do not have an easy path here. Every single nation, I feel like, is representing with somebody who is super, super tough. Um, and somebody who's just familiar, not going to be afraid that Scotty Scheffler's in the field. I mean, you even look at a place like Germany, right? So Steven Jaeger, who's been on the PGA Tour for years and years, played on the Corn Ferry Tour. He broke through and beat Scheffler earlier this year. If people remember the one time where Scotty actually didn't get it done down the stretch. He's representing Germany, so he's not going to be afraid of Scotty Scheffler if he's playing it up against him down the stretch. So keep that in mind as you're watching this event, because there are a lot of people out there and they're not going to be afraid of Team USA.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking through the list here. Obviously, like there are names we talked about before as like guys that we've kept an eye on deeper down fields that are popping up here representing other countries, like Corey Connors representing Canada, Joaquin, even a favorite of yours representing Chile. So like there are a lot of like,
Yeah, Tom Kim representing Korea.
yeah, yeah, there's a lot of capable players here. Like Ben On, I feel like is another one we've talked about in this podcast before. Like there's a very like, it may not be like the biggest names that you're familiar with as a golf fan who's watched like all these PGA Tour events, but like, these guys are not no slouches.
No, no. I mean, there is a very, very, very good representation of the best players. This is going to feel like a major championship for sure.
Yeah. And it's also the stakes are very high in this because as you mentioned here, like this comes around once every 4 years. So like a lot
Yeah,
of
this
guys may
is
get like maybe like one or two cracks at it in their whole career.
exactly. And with how golf is trending right now, where these 20, 21-year-olds, honestly, even Miles Russell, the 15-year-old, you've got these super, super young players that are just making their way into professional golf way earlier than they probably should have. And they're pushing like 30, 33. Like Rory McIlroy is kind of an old man now at 35, 30 years old. Um, and everybody still looks at him and kind of thinks, he's the up and coming superstar. But I mean, 4 years is a big difference. That's why I think that it means so much to these guys that you're only going to get a chance, and you might not be on the team next time around. You can't predict life. You can't predict an injury. You can't. It means a lot to these guys because it's basically once in a lifetime. It'd be shot. Xander's in a weird spot that he's been able to do it twice and maybe a third, but um, you know, um, it's just a really, really special thing for these guys, and I think that that's why it's worth tuning into if you can get your eyes on it.
Yeah, that's for sure here. I know like I talk about the tennis too on this podcast as well, because like think about like a guy like Novak Djokovic as well. It's like he's won everything. The only thing he's not won, Olympic gold. So like there's a lot
Yeah.
of heat in some of these things.
Well, and for the listeners, like you and I had been talking about just how he's played and coming off that injury even for a few weeks ago, and just to see him how quickly he's gotten back from injury in order to prepare, um, it shows how much it means. I don't think if the Olympics were going on, I don't know if he'd be pushing himself so hard to get himself back on the court after that injury about a month and a half ago.
Yeah, I think otherwise he probably would target the US Open as his return date. But like here he like plays Wimbledon, goes all the way to the final, and then has to switch court surfaces again, which is another crazy thing.
Yeah, I don't get that, but no, I definitely think that those are the kinds of things that matter. The Olympics still matter quite a bit, and I've always been more of a Winter Olympics guy. I really enjoy watching like the biathlon. I think those people are insane. If to be able to ski that hard and then stop and control your breathing and shoot a rifle. I think it's fascinating, but everybody loves the Summer Olympics. And I'll be watching the golf, the tennis, and the basketball. Oh, and the track and field, of course, because that's exciting.
Yeah, so sure. Here, a couple things before we wrap up here. Number one, like if you had to peg a winner here, who would you pick?
Mm. Oof. So I think I'll do this. I'll do this. I'm going to pick three players that will be on the podium. How about that?
You pick the medalists.
I won't give a gold medal. I'll just say three players that will be on the podium.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Um, I'm gonna go with Mathieu Pavon from France. I could see him possibly getting the silver or bronze to represent France. I'm gonna take Scotty Scheffler. And I'm gonna take Rory McIlroy. Just because he's playing so good right now, and I think that if I think it'll be really, really fascinating. I know that's an easy cop out, but I'm just kind of looking at the list and looking at Scotty and how everybody is playing right now. I just think that I think Scotty's is definitely going to win it. If you had to ask me who's going to win the gold, he wants this. Um, I think he wants it really bad, and I would expect him to bring his absolute best out there. So it would be strange for me in my mind to think that he would struggle out there. I don't think that's in the cards. The two players I think that could push the podium would be Hideki um, and Victor Hovland. I think those would be two interesting names to push because I think Victor, it would mean a lot. He's such a good guy, and he loves Norway so much and representing his country, and I think that this would mean a lot to him. I could see him like I can picture in my mind like him on the podium holding up that medal and like almost shedding a tear because it means so much. And he's a really, really good guy to root for. So even if he's not representing the US, I'll always root for Victor Hovland.
Yeah, absolutely. In the last thing years, this kind of news has snuck in on the radar the last day or so. Obviously, 2028, the Olympics are coming back to the US. They're going to LA here. They announced that that Riviera is going to be the pick for the Olympic course here. Do you like that choice?
Look, so Riviera is obviously one of the coolest stops on the PGA Tour. The Genesis Invitational is obviously a really special event each year on the PGA Tour. That golf course has obviously one of the coolest finishing holes in golf. I love the 18th there. It is definitely it's a style. It's definitely a vibe. Um, I think the Americans are going to have quite a bit of advantage on that one. But then again, you would kind of hope that if you're hosting the Olympics, that's going to where you're going to, that you get the home field advantage on that one. Um, we'll talk a little as we get a little bit closer, but I think Riviera is of all the courses out there, I think it's a fair test. And maybe they were worried just, I don't know, time of year and course conditions and whatnot about looking at some other venues. That one seems like a very safe bet. It's going to look beautiful on TV. It's always first class all the way around. I'm curious about the logistics behind having all those players out there and all it's kind of in a crazy spot, but we'll talk as it gets a little closer. But my initial reaction is I will say if I had one word to describe it, I would say interesting.
All right, so that's an interesting point. We'll keep an eye on the golf here the next couple of weeks, Dan. Thanks all the time. Really appreciate it. People follow you on social media. How can they do that?
Yeah, follow me at DMart207 and I will definitely be tweeting during the event.